Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll just wait a couple of minutes for people to trickle in. So while we wait for other people to join, I will just introduce myself. My name is Sang Kim, and I'm a research manager at Aspen Network of Development Entrepreneurs, in short, ANDE. I think a couple of my colleagues are joining. I will be leading the session and then take Q&As. And for your information, I will also record the session so that we can upload the video for people who aren't able to join at this time. Yeah, so I'll start recording. Oh, okay, it's already recorded. While we wait for people to join, if you can introduce yourself on the chat box, what your name and where you're joining from. Yeah, that would be great to just have a overlook for me about where you're all joining from. Yes, somebody has a hands up. Brittany, can you unmute yourself? Chat is disabled. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, so if you can then, if you can yeah, if you, so it seems like you can utilize Q&A session, Q&A box. So if you can live there, that'd be great. And in the meantime, I will share my slides. And just for a couple of housekeeping stuff, so I can unmute yourself. So if during the Q&A session, if you have questions, just please raise a hand up. Then I will unmute you to hear your voice. If that's how yeah, if you wanna ask a question. All right. We're close to 9:05, so I think we'll get started. And okay, so I'll get started by introducing the research grant that ANDE recently launched. It's called Improving Outcomes for Women in Clean Energy through Applied Research. And this project, this grant, is funded by IDRC, International Development and Research Center in Canada. Yeah, it's also a consortium with TX Global, our partner. And I'll move to the next slide. So most of you probably heard about this opportunity from our emails. Hi, Estefania, you heard? Okay. Okay, Stephanie, okay, I unmuted you.
Yeah, thank you, Sangyeon. I don't know if you are like passing the slides, but we are just in the first one. I don't know if you are in the second slide or you are still in the first one.
Yeah, can you see like do you see what do you see, the title page or the call for interest?
The title page.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
weird. And like what about now?
No, I'm still like seeing the improving outcomes for a woman in clean energy.
Okay, and do you see the slide in full screen or
No, not full
no?
screen. No.
Okay,
Yeah, now oh,
okay.
thank you. Now I can see
Then
the slide. Yeah.
let me try this.
Okay. Now I can see the
And then
second one, the call for interest. Oh,
really? What about now?
yeah, I see the full screen,
That
but
doesn't
the
does do you see the slides moving?
yeah.
Okay, that's great. So if yeah, thank you for joining and thank you for helping me out a little bit the logistics. So yeah, so we are launching this. We have launched this research grant opportunity about women in clean energy through applied research. So this funding is the goal of the funding is to fund 6 collaborative research projects led by practitioners and researchers. And we have our research focus on Latin America and the Caribbean region and also Sub-Saharan Africa. And also, as you can see in the title, we have a sector focus on women in the clean energy sector. You can consider clean energy, renewable energy, all these things, like low carbon emissions sector, they all go into this considered clean energy sector. And each project is eligible to apply for a grant up to US dollars of $60,000. So you can also find those information on the website that I will drop the link later in the later. And the timeline for this is that we will receive the interest forms for matchmaking workshop from any interested parties by February 19. For your record, we extended the deadline for the submission of interest form to February 9, which originally was by the end of January. Because we have this open house and consider that many people will be interested in submitting after the open house. And then based on the interest forms that are submitted to us, we'll send out an invitation to participants who are deemed to be a highly likely match for the matchmaking workshop. So you'll get an invitation from ANDE if you're invited for the matchmaking workshop. And then we'll host virtual and in-person matchmaking workshops for each region, Latin America and Caribbean and Sub-Saharan Africa region in March and April. And the deadline, so the matchmaking workshop is, the purpose of the matchmaking workshops is to facilitate the formation of the partnership between practitioners and researchers, because we want to we want this grant to go to the researcher and practitioner partners, not just one party. So if you are applying just as a practitioner or just as a researcher, then the likelihood of your getting the grant is very, very slim, because we want to fund both parties as a joint partnership. And the deadline, so that is the purpose of the matchmaking workshop, for us to help you form the partnership. And the deadline for the full proposal that will be considered for the grant would be May 31st. And then in about a month later, we'll announce winners and then facilitate the contracting of the grant in July. And then after the contract has finalized, you'll be able to begin the project. And then we expect the projects to be completed by the first quarter of 2026. The period for your research project can go over a year to a little bit less than 2 years. And please also note that the submission for matchmaking workshop and the grant proposals are separate processes. So as I mentioned earlier, the matchmaking workshop is just to have you find your partner. If you're a practitioner, will help you find the researcher partner, and if you're a researcher, vice versa, it will help you find the practitioner partner. But after finding your partner, you have to submit the grant proposal to be considered for the grant. Next is about the matchmaking, a little bit more details about the matchmaking workshop. So as I mentioned, the purpose of it is to facilitate the formation of practitioners and researchers partnership. So we'll host those in 2 different formats, one in person and another in virtual. And the in-person matchmaking workshop for Latin American and Caribbean participants will be hosted in Mexico City in the 2nd week of March. And for those who are in Sub-Saharan Africa, it will be hosted in Nairobi in the 2nd week of April. And for the virtual one, we'll use Zoom links, and for the Latin America and Caribbean region, we'll host a virtual event in the 3rd week of April, and for the one for Sub-Saharan Africa, it will be in the 2nd week of April. And eligibility and FAQ. So there's a whole lot more list of FAQs that we have listed in the webpage, so you can take a look at it later. But just a couple of things that I thought might be most important to you is that first, participating organizations or individuals. You could be organizations or individuals, because you might not. Well, if you're academic, you might apply as an individual. So participating organizations or individuals must be based in the region that you are studying, so Latin America and Caribbean or Sub-Saharan Africa. And also you have to propose projects that would be conducted in the region. So we for this project, we are not going to fund for this grant, we are not going to fund projects that are going to be conducted in Asia. That's the scope of this grant. And the proposal must be submitted jointly by both practitioners and researchers. And the funding can be used only for nonprofit organizations or not for nonprofit use. So there's a little bit of slight nuance to it, because we recognize that in some countries there is no legal entity called nonprofit organizations. In that case, you might not be registered as nonprofit organizations, but if the funding is used for nonprofit use, you're still eligible for this fund. Lastly, the participation in the matchmaking workshop is encouraged, but not mandatory. So if you feel like you already have a good partnership with a researcher or a practitioner, and you organically have these good relationships, then you don't have to participate in the matchmaking workshop, but we encourage you to network. That would be a good place to network for you to widen your network. So in terms of what kind of research we are supporting, ANDE is seeking applied research to uncover ways to support women entrepreneurs, employees, and consumers in the clean energy sector better. So although ANDE ANDE has a specialty in supporting entrepreneurs. For this grant, we are not only limited to supporting women entrepreneurs, but also supporting uncovering ways to support women in the sector in general, which we identify broadly as entrepreneurs, employees, and consumers. There are a couple of research questions that we listed out on the webpage as well, and I'm going to go over briefly, but these are not the only sets of research questions that we are going to fund. So if you think that your research question is aligned with the scope of the research that is laid out here, then you can still apply and have a very good chance of getting the fund. So the examples of the research questions are first, what are the practices that can, what practices can entrepreneur support organizations adopt to make their programs more gender inclusive for women entrepreneurs and employees in clean energy sector, and encourage founders to employ more women and pay equal wages. And second, what are the examples of successful gender lens investments and business support services in the clean energy sector, and can the examples be applied to other ecosystem actors? Third, which types of ESOs, entrepreneur support organizations, support women entrepreneurs more effectively and promote workforce gender equality in the clean energy sector? Fourth, what are the interventions that can be implemented and scaled to reduce the gender bias of investors, employers in the renewable energy sector? What are the effective ways ESOs help women entrepreneurs navigate gender bias regarding access to markets in renewable energy? What are the examples of businesses that scaled and served women consumers in renewable energy, and what are their success factors for their scale? Lastly, do women business owners champion the rights and serve the needs of women employees and consumers better than their counterpart men? So as I mentioned earlier, I just want to emphasize that these are the examples of questions that can arise, but we are not only limited to these questions. And also, one thing that also I want to highlight is that we are really interested in the solutions of how to support women in the sector better, not identifying the challenges. So there are a lot of research studies that have been conducted about what are the challenges that women are facing, women entrepreneurs, consumers, employees are facing in the sector as well already. So what we are interested in is not focused on the challenges, but more focused on like how to tackle these challenges and what are the solutions that are working or not working. So I think that is the end of the presentation that I prepared, which I think I'm on time. And I will take questions from here. If you have questions, please raise your hand and I will unmute you. All right, Rachel.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I also put this question in the chat. I was just wondering if we have researchers in-house, can we just submit as one organization, or do we need to have a research partner?
Yeah, so if you have we do really want to encourage collaborations across organizations. That is one of the goal and aim of this project as well. So you do need to have a partner organization. So if you feel like your strength is research and like you have a solid like expertise in research methodology, and your expertise lies on consulting on the research, then I would suggest that you apply as a researcher and then find a practitioner partner that will collaborate with you.
Sang-Yeon, if you don't mind, I'll just chime in. Hi, I'm Abby. I'm also with ANDE. I think it may be helpful if anyone has this similar question to just share with us. We can share our email, and you can share with us how distinct the research and practice arms of your organization are. I think that could be something we could consider too if they act somewhat independently. I think what we wouldn't want is the practice, the program, serving as the practitioner and the research to have so much overlap that they're not sort of conjoining entities.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Thanks, Abby. Thanks, Abby.
Yeah, and I think there is also a similar question on the chat as well. What are the examples of a practitioner partner, I guess, researcher organization? So we do not so when I guess practitioner is a kind of a broader term than a researcher when in general common use. But when we refer to researchers, it's not just people who are affiliated in academic organizations. It could be any if you like consulting services or research advisory services organizations that can be also considered researcher. And as Rachel mentioned, if her organization has research and that's their strong strength that you can also apply as a researcher. We'll consider case by case, and we would consider your qualifications as a researcher if in consideration of the full proposal as well. Okay, there are a couple of hands. If you don't have any question, if your question is answered, please leave hands down, leave the hands down, and I will Bridget, do you have questions?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. My question is regarding the matchmaking workshop. You said that it's not mandatory, but recommended. So I was wondering if you could speak a bit more about that. I'm assuming that travel to this workshop would be on the organization's behalf. But also I'm curious as to the content. Would this workshop make us more competitive for the actual proposal? Are you going to be providing, sort of information very specific to the organization and is this going to be helpful to us, or would it not necessarily? Over.
Yeah, so for that question, for your last part of your question, it will not participating in the matchmaking workshop or being invited to the matchmaking workshop would not make your proposal more competitive than other organizations who did not participate in the matchmaking workshop. So so the sole purpose of the matchmaking workshop is to help you widen your network. And then there would not be information that's only exclusively provided to the matchmaking workshop from the ANDE side. The purpose of the matchmaking workshop is solely focused on helping organizations to find and network with researchers and practitioners, because there is often not much of a crossing the boundaries between academics and versus practitioners especially. So there's a lot of studies about the sector and how to improve the gender balance, gender equality in the sector, but oftentimes the studies are not studies don't address the questions that are the most daunting problem for the people who are actually on the ground working on the sector. So that's the goal of the matchmaking workshop, so that we have research that tackles the most challenging problems. Even if you don't apply, you don't participate in the matchmaking workshop and you have a partner and just blindly apply, we'll just try to select the research grant that has the most solid solid methodology and addressing the most important questions and feasibility, etc. That would be our criteria.
Sang-Yun, perhaps I could just add as well, since I'll be leading the workshops in person. We will not like pre-match anybody before coming in. It will be meant to, as Sang-Yun mentioned, widen your networks and learn what is a researcher looking for, like what is helpful for them and a practitioner partner, and vice versa. So if you already have a good research partner, I would recommend that you don't come, because I think that you might it won't serve the purpose you're looking for. And I think we'll spend most of the time at the workshop making sure that they understand how to work together, rather than giving specific guidance on whether, their research question is valid. Of course, those conversations will come up, but I think it'll be more about making those relationships and partnerships. I hope that that's clear.
All right, I'll move into another person. Charles.
Hello, everyone. My name is Charles Lee Matthews. Thank you, Sang-Yun, for the briefing. I really appreciate the time. My question is, I've got two questions. The first question is that I represent Think Room and Thinkubate, which are for-profit companies based in South Africa and with a presence across Africa, the Middle East, and the UK. As a for-profit company that is invested in kind of 3 geographies that enable non-profits, would we still be able to participate if we match with a researcher or match with a non-profit? And then kind of the strength that we can bring is that our data points are massive. So in the past 10 years, for instance, we've worked with 20,000 SMEs. We've had like thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs that have gone through our schools and that sort of thing. Yeah. And then we've covered everything from, we have gender lens, investing in kind of our investment arm, we have education, we have capacity building. We've done this across 3 geographies, 3 kind of continents. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I'd just like to know kind of have the land there. Yeah.
Gotcha. So for your first question about whether you can apply when your organization is registered as for-profit, in my understanding, South Africa is one of the countries where there is no legal entity category for non-profit organizations. So in that case, because you're based in South Africa and registered as a for-profit, you will still be able to apply, because there is no legal entity for non-profit in the country. But then you also need to make sure that all the whole budget, 100% of the budget you receive from us will go to non-profit purpose. Non-profit for purpose in your organization. That does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much, Sang-Yun.
Right, no problem. Brittany, so next person I want to answer is Brittany.
Hello, thank you so much. So my name's Brittany McDonald. I'm based in Antigua and Barbuda, which would fall under Latin America and the Caribbean. So I do have a few questions. One being, what is the extent of the Latin America and Caribbean makeup in terms of countries that this grant would cover? Does it cover the entire region? Often we see that there are selected countries. And so also I would want to find out if we can do work within one specific country, such as Antigua and Barbuda, or do we need to collaborate across other Caribbean countries or Latin America in order to fulfill the requirements of the grant? I'll pause there and then go into the next question because it's not HAS related.
Gotcha. Yeah, so the simple answer is no, you don't have to cover the entire region. You can select within the Latin American and Caribbean region, you can select which country or countries you want to focus on. So if you want to just focus on where you're based, that's still fine. Yeah, so yeah, that's the question. That's the answer to your question.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. So another question I have in regards to the clean energy women practitioners, is there a requirement for them to have a formalized business structure? And if so, how long would they need to demonstrate that they've been in operations or conducting this type of work? Is there a requirement, or can they also be in the initiation phases as well, based on the research questions?
So that is really depending on the case by case, I would say. So would that organization be registered as an entity?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes, it would. Mhm.
I think in that case, you can still apply. Yeah, and then but it's also we would also consider like how feasible is this project gonna be successfully implemented. So you would need to kind of prove or provide some information about their capacity of, because they would have a less track record of implementing projects. So that would be something you would need to provide more in detail in terms of like, why do you think that this partner or practitioner organization is able to implement this proposed project successfully?
Mhm. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, there's also still a couple of hands. So Grace Duggan. If you want to ask a question, you have the floor.
Absolutely. Can you hear me? I
Yes.
wasn't sure if I unmuted. So my name is Grace Duggan, and I am with Halcyon, and we are based in Washington, DC, a nonprofit incubator. And we are collaborating very closely with Kenyatta University and Sandbox Group in Nairobi to support climate entrepreneurs in Kenya and the continent. And we are very much interested in this opportunity to study women in the energy sector. And I wanted to understand your eligibility criteria on the location of the collaborators. Are we able to qualify to collaborate with, say, Kenyatta University in Nairobi while we're based in Washington, DC?
Yes. Yeah. So the short answer is yes. So I guess the Kenyatta University is based in Kenya. And your organization is based in DC. But do you have a local office or staff presence there?
We do not have, but we do implement projects with partners there.
This funding, the purpose of the funding is also to support global South organizations and individuals. So for that purpose, we want the direction of this funding is to support organizations who that are based in, they have a local presence for both practitioners and researcher partners. Yes, for that, we do support organizations that is headquartered outside that is headquartered in global north, but have presence in global south. But then you do need to have some like local staff or office in the global south, the region that you're going to implement the projects.
Okay, understood. Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay. Okay, there's more and more people raising their hands up. Next up would be Camilla.
Hi, thanks a lot for the explanation. I have two questions, and one is about the scope of the research. I think you explained it a bit. There are several questions, and we could even bring another new one that it's not there. But we realize that there are different ways of looking to the issue, different lens, and also different potential beneficiaries like women entrepreneurs, employee, consumers. So our question would be, can we focus on one public and one question, or do you expect the research to have an overview of all of that?
Okay.
And then I have a one, but maybe I can pause.
Okay,
then.
yeah, I'll answer that question first. Yeah, so we don't expect you to answer all the questions, or like find a solution for all, for like all the women entrepreneurs, consumers, and employees in the sector, because we do want this research to have like provide a deep create a deep conversation and like go in deep in dive into the question rather than providing just just overview of the solutions. So we do want you to that is our preference for you to go deep dive into the research question and have a solid answer to one question rather than having try to go over and try to answer all the questions with without much depth. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And maybe the second question is around what you consider a practitioner to be. It was clear in the FAQ that it's about the study of real life interventions and this relationship with what's happening in the field. But would it be a kind of a researcher that gathers information from the field, or also someone that will have to test solutions and more like a designer? If you could explain a bit more what you consider a practitioner to be.
Yeah. So I think so the distinction between researcher and practitioner will come from the roles they are going to play. So the researcher would be mostly advising on the will come up with will advising on the research design methodology, and then kind of consolidating the findings, and then put that into into a writing that can be easily translated into the audience. The practitioner's role is to also in the designing of the research, they will also consult on the research designing, but also from the perspective of like, why is this important? This is or you can the practitioner's role is like this. I work with this women entrepreneurs or women employees, and these are the most dire problems that I directly hear from them. So in that case, you can help them identify the research questions. But then I think one of the core roles that practitioners would play is to implementing the project. And also advising on the feasibility of the research project, because some of the research designs might sound solid on paper, but it might not be feasible on the ground. So so in terms of like, if you just like simplify that, the researcher is more providing a theoretical background, and the practitioner is making that happen, like implementation. Does
Okay.
that help?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, was that all your questions?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
All right. Okay, I will give a floor to Javier next.
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry, yes, I do want to expand a little bit on the scope of the research. So it is clear to me that the proposal has not need to focus like in the entire region or even in a sub-region. We can make a proposal that focus only in one country. But then in terms of eligibility, like what will you give preference to? So if you have two proposals, one that is, focused in only one country, and then you have another proposal that is focused in a region, let's say Guatemala versus Central America, or even someone who is bringing a proposal to cover the entire continent. What is your eligibility criteria in that case?
Yeah, so essentially, I don't think whether you focus on one country versus multiple countries or across the region would affect your would make your proposal any stronger in depending on what the number of countries that you are going to focus on, because if you focus on multiple countries, we'll also consider it's a bigger project, then we also will consider whether this is a feasible project. Do they have the capacity to run this project across multiple countries? So we'll consider not just so I would say the most ambitious project is not the best project. So we'll have to assess whether your proposed idea would be able to be delivered in the timeline that we have for the project. So in that sense, I don't think that multiple across country study is necessarily stronger than one and a project than a project that focuses only on one single country. But then if you are proposing a study that only focuses on one country, I do strongly want to encourage you to include the background for why you focus on the country. Why do you think this country is the most important case to study the solution for how to support women in the clean energy section? So if there is, for example, is the clean energy sector the promising sector in the country, or is it voting sector, but there's a lot of push to improve and progress? Those kind of things. Why do you focus on this particular country? Would be what I would kind of expect from the full proposal.
Right, thank you. Understood. Thank you very much.
No problem. And then I'll move on to the next person, Modina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Modinot. While you were making the presentation, I had February 19 as the timeline for submission of interest form for the matchmaking workshop, but on the slide, I saw February 9. So I want a clarification on that.
Where did you see 9? The date is February 9th, not February 19. Where did you see the February 19?
I saw February 9, but I think I heard February 19, so I want to be sure.
Okay, yeah, so just for the record for everyone, we'll accept the interest form submissions by February 9th. So that would be approximately 10 days away from now.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. And then I'll move on to Juanita.
Thank you. My question is regarding the eligibility criteria for practitioners, because I run a nonprofit in Colombia that aims at empowering and educating young women so that they become the leaders of the energy transition. But our track record is not that old. We've been there for 2 years now. So I was wondering if there are any specific if there is information of those criteria, and if also, for instance, we as an organization could collaborate with other practitioners to demonstrate that we have the capacity to implement the solution that we are researching or not. So if I, for example, if I decide to apply with my nonprofit, we have to do it individually as a practitioner, or there is a possibility to have a joint venture or a collaboration with other practitioners so that we can demonstrate that we do have the capacity.
Gotcha. So for your, okay, I will answer your second question first. Can you collaborate with other practitioner? I think the answer is yes. But then you still need to have a collaborator, researcher collaborator that will contribute to the project as a researcher, advising on the research methodology, identifying, and like doing the background research on what kind of study is already available and what are the contributions of your project, and making sure that data collection protocol is up to the highest level. Abby, do you have something to add to that?
Oh, sorry. Nope. I have something to add when you're finished.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think we are open to having you can collaborate to enhance your application. You can collaborate with other practitioners, but then every research grantees need to have both arm of practitioner and researcher. Does it answer your
Thank
question?
you. Yeah, that answers my question. And then if if we can do that, should we send a joint what's the name? I can't remember. Interest, whatever, the email, like me and my nonprofit and the other practitioner, we should both send you the form of interest together, or should we attend the workshop first and then depending on that, if we find a better fit, like two practitioners with a researcher? I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what to do in that case.
Yeah, so for the interest form, interest form is for matchmaking workshop. It's not for the grant proposal. So for the if you're participating to find a researcher partner from the matchmaking workshop, then I would suggest you submit only one form as a consortium, and then so you have to decide between you and your practitioner partner who is going to participate in the matchmaking workshop, and that person should submit the interest form for the matchmaking workshop. I don't think the interest form allows you to enter multiple organizations as a practitioner.
Understood. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, there's a couple of more hands and we have.
Let me just interject really quick if you don't mind, Sang-Yoon, because there's been some repeat questions in the, I'm doing my best to answer the Q&As that are coming up. Yeah. And one of them is requests for guideline of what the proposal should look like, which made me realize, Sang-Yoon, I don't think we have like a PDF version of the proposal template so that people can prepare in advance. Maybe that's something we can add to the website.
Yeah, definitely. So currently how it's living is that if you go to, okay, let me just drop this page. So I just left a link to the webinar chat. This is where all the information is living about this funding. And if you scroll all the way down on the page, you can also see the submit your full proposal, which is due by May 31st. So currently, if you click that submit your full proposal, there is there are a handful of questions that you need to answer, and and then at the end of the proposal submission of your proposal, you'll be able to see what we expect from your proposal, such as the research methodology, feasibility, what is your data collection method, what is the estimated data collection period, etc. So we have those kind of laid out there, but we can make that information available on the webpage before even you click the submit your full proposal button.
The other common question that I've been seeing is, can can practitioners or researchers apply for, it can be part of more than one proposal? Like, for example, could a practitioner apply with 2 different researchers and different proposals, or could the same researcher and practitioner apply multiple times for a different project design?
So we would like to have you propose not more than one project. And we want you to propose the best idea you have and submit it in the full proposal. And for full proposal, we expect you to have a really rigorous think through all the steps that you're going to take for the project. And the page limit for that is 10 pages. So we do want you to really take time and put your time into the proposal in one, rather than having submitting multiple proposals to increase your odds of getting the fund. Was there any other common questions, Abby?
I don't think so. I'm going one by one. There's a lot of questions about like being a for-profit, and it seems like the only way around that would be if there's like a nonprofit arm of the for-profit organization, or if the for-profit somehow was partnering with a nonprofit. Like maybe there's a for-profit investment firm, like we couldn't grant to them, but if there was a nonprofit they wanted to partner with to provide some like investment readiness support, the funding could go to the researcher and the nonprofit partner that's working with the for-profit investment firm. Would that be, Sangan, are we on the same page about that? Is that how you would describe?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I hope that helps.
All right. Then I will also I will go in order of people who have had their hands up. Grace, do you have any more questions?
No, sorry, I just forgot to lower my hand. I apologize.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Okay, I'll move on. Modinat. Modinat, do you have questions, or did you forget to put your hand down? Okay, I'll move on to Camilla. Camilla, do you have questions?
Yes, so just to come back to the scope of practitioner, just to guarantee that it's that I understood it correctly. When you say about the core role is about implementing the project, you mean implementing the research, but also implementing the interventions and afterwards? And so we were considering if it's kind of a researcher in the field, or also someone that can apply the solutions that we will design. Because for instance, I'm just gonna give one example that that maybe make it more tangible. If we already offer fund for women who are working on the field of clean energy, and they are entrepreneur, and we have this access to them, and that would make our like project of research more feasible because we already know them, we can access them. Would that be the scope of practitioner that you are referring to?
Yes, I think that's very exactly what we expect practitioners play a role in. And if you already have a track record of or network of target population, for example, women entrepreneurs in your case in the clean energy sector, then that is great because it kind of demonstrates that you've done this in the past and surely you can implement the project. So I think that's what we would expect from the practitioner. And for this project, we would expect the research component to really be piped into the project. So your project or your intervention in your organization would be utilized to answer the research question that you want to jointly address with your researcher partner.
Okay, so it's the implementation of the research and the solutions afterwards.
So in terms of solutions afterwards, that's not necessarily required, but that is also the advantage of why we are supporting the research that is implemented by practitioners, because we do not require you to implement the solutions after the project period. But then that if the solution is working and successful, then we would kind of hope that solution continues to be implemented by the practitioner.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. Okay, I'll give the floor to Camilla.
Let me pop in really quick just to emphasize too. I think so, Sang, and I know you shared this, but I just want to make sure it's very, very clear to everybody that the list of questions that Sang shared on the PowerPoint slide are just examples, right? Like to learn more about the purpose of why this fund was started, visit the website that we shared to understand, but really the goal is to understand how do we promote the inclusion of women in the clean energy sector as entrepreneurs, employees, customers, and also help their performance, right? And so the questions we had were just to give you a sense of what do we mean by, understanding a practical solution and its potential effectiveness. So just want to make sure that that's very clear to everyone. We welcome you to think beyond the questions that we posed. The whole purpose is that the conclusions you come to are applicable to other practitioners in the field so that other practitioners can take those learnings and improve their own efforts to supporting women in clean energy. Just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Okay, I don't see, yeah, I don't think anyone else has their hands up. So let's go over some questions that's on the chat box. So is the practitioner so is the practitioner expected to pilot solutions or just to offer validation data on the solutions found on the research? I'm not sure what Barbara means by validation data, but you don't need to have a pilot solution. So pilot what I understand as pilot is like you just implement the study in a smaller scale to make sure that you're not wasting your money on a bigger scale, to make sure that your research actually is going to turn out that the way you expect. So we don't expect you to pilot the solution beforehand, before you apply or after we give you a grant. Yeah, so that I hope that answers your question.
One way to address that too, because I've been thinking about this question as I've seen it, Barbara, is that what we wouldn't necessarily suggest is that a researcher conduct a study independently and then the practitioner try to implement the findings independently, right? This is supposed to be a joint research project that utilizes the practitioners' accessibility to women in the clean energy sector. So it should be a joint activity.
Okay, so there's another one. I am a renewable biogas entrepreneur. My company operated a large-scale digester that recycled food waste into biogas and fertilizer. And I believe that my unique insights, experience and insights could benefit more than one project. In that case, could I participate in more than one project? So what we would, so as I think that's touched on the previous question that I answered, we want the practitioner and researcher consortium to apply only as in one proposal. Yeah, and then if the ideas are similar, we don't want to fund similar ideas. We don't want to fund multiple similar ideas. Yeah, so we would want to diversify our portfolio of funded research. So so it's unlikely that we will fund like similar research across. Abby?
Yeah, I know we're coming up on time, so I wanted to elevate one of the questions that I thought was could potentially be helpful to a lot of the participants, and this is from Camila. It says that, you know, understanding that there's different questions or lenses to see this issue of women in clean energy, there's different profiles of potential beneficiaries, women as entrepreneurs, employees, customers. Should these projects aim to examine all of these layers, or can they focus on one in particular?
Okay, do you want to answer them, Abby?
Oh, you're doing, yeah, sure. I can. No, it can definitely be one in particular. And probably should in many cases to have a very good rigorous study, right? So I don't know, Sang-Eun, if you would add anything to that.
Yeah, I think that I have a similar point of view, and it also goes back to the depth versus width. And we'd like to have a depth for one question rather than going over like a range of answers, trying to answer about don't have rigorous and answer or evidence. Yeah, so you don't have to try to address all the questions at one research, and we don't expect that. Unless there's any burning questions, we'd like to close the session. If you have any burning questions we need to address, please, I'll just give 5 seconds to raise your hand. Okay, otherwise, thank you so much for joining this session for our research grant. It's so great to see so much interest from you. And if there's any answer that I haven't answered, or if you come up with a question later, then please send me an email.
There's also been a lot of questions on whether we'll share the slides in the recording afterwards. So yes, we will share with everybody.
Yeah. The webinar is recorded and we'll make it public on the webpage that in the link the webpage link that we have on the chat. Yeah, thank you so much for your interest, and I'll look forward to see your interest forms submitted or proposal submitted, and looking to see your brilliant ideas. Thank you so much. Bye.